as you can see here, we're back with his R32. The last video it's been in was probably what, the Aero install? The lip kit install?
Yep, the Maxton Designs kit.
Yeah, so it's been a few videos.
And if you haven't seen that, I'll link it below.
Yeah.
You can check it out.
Click below. Subscribe.
Please.
It's been hibernating here, the R32 has, and now we're finally tearing into it. We got some downtime on things to do, so he's got a dual Viar 400C kit, black kit, that we're going to replace the compressors on this and go over some kind of air maintenance, some preventative maintenance, things like that, because you can't just install air system and just leave it be and call it good, because stuff goes bad. Check valves, leader lines, it just happens. Filters, so.
Specifically, there's a few things that, over the years we figured out what works and what doesn't work. But the reason we're changing the compressors today is that I kept getting leaks through the check valve of the compressor. And if you don't know what that is, essentially you've sprayed down everything else and you're getting a leak in the tank. So it's not coming from any of your bags, it's not coming from, well, it could come from one of the ports on the manifold, but you spray down the tank, you spray down the manifold, and you don't see any leaks, but you're still losing air through the tank. That can only be one thing unless your tank actually has a hole in it, which is, it can pretty much only be one thing. And that's your check valve is stuck open slightly from either a piece of contaminant or the check valve itself is like corroded and it's kind of getting stuck in place. So I had like an intermittent leak from my tank and I couldn't source it anywhere, and so that told me it was a check valve. I replaced the check valves with brand new ones and that worked great for a few days, and then I started getting the same issue again. So what I'm thinking is happening is there's gunk in my leader lines and that is getting caught in the check valve, and so when I throw the check valve in there, more of that gunk was getting pushed through from the leader lines and causing the check valve to get stuck open. So I hit up Cedar Performance and they hooked me up with the dual 400C black Viar compressor kit. And so I'll be swapping out the 380s that are in this car that were even from a previous owner, so they could use it. Yeah. And then I'll give you guys a walkthrough of like my air system and why I did what I did. So we're just gonna be wrenching on this. It's really just gonna be swapping out the compressors, but I'll just mix in there. I'll sprinkle in
some knowledge.
Some knowledge, yeah. Some air ride knowledge.
See, that wasn't that bad.
There it is. Finger guns. Had to end it with the finger.
This is the check valve that comes on a Viar compressor. It may work for a short period of time, but I do not recommend these, and always run the SMC check valves that are specific for it, always. These are literally brand new that I pulled off compressors that I ran and switched them right away. I don't run these. I keep them around as spares in case something happens in an emergency. That's it.
Yeah, so this is the compressor. I like that the line is sleeved. I got the SMC check valves that Brian was talking about, so we'll be swapping those out. Not even gonna waste my time with these. Let's take you guys on a little walk through what I got going on. All right, so basic setup. This is an AccuAir 5-gallon tank, and I got the AccuAir EXO tank mounts just because I kind of like the way they look. And then I had the dudes from the AOK shop hit up the hard lines on this thing, so I'll link them below, so you guys could check them out if you're local, if you want like hardline setups like this done. But I wanted everything else like hidden, and I wanted a simple trunk setup so I can throw my backpack in the back and stuff, which I do. I throw bags back here all the time, and so I wanted it to be like simple. I didn't want like hardwood flooring or any of that crazy stuff. Like I wanted a usable trunk. So underneath this panel, and I should be able to get this out very carefully. Yeah. The way Brian and I, by the way, the only thing I didn't do in this trunk setup is the hard lines. Brian and I did everything else. So we got some storage right here for like quick detailer and rags and stuff, you know, the essentials. I could put a little toolkit right there if I wanted to. Other than that, I put these two compressors, which is the reason for today. These are bad. I mean, they work, but something's wrong with them. But they are on AccuAir EXO isolator mounts, and they're mounted improperly, which was my doing. It's not like it has been working, but I'm gonna mount these isolator mounts upright. I got 3 water traps. So we have this one right here, this one right here, and this one right here. They're all SMC quarter-inch. Yeah, they're all SMC quarter-inch water traps. These are the SMC upgraded check valves that are specifically, not specifically made, but they work perfectly with the Viar leader lines and these quarter-inch water traps. These are the SMC brackets that are mounted, so that way these water traps are all mounted all nice. And then, so I could mount things in the spare tire well without screwing into the spare tire well, I made this, this is a particle board piece that I cut in the shape of the spare tire well and then wrapped it in a black fabric. You gotta get it?
Now I can.
Yeah, so this was just wrapped in like a black fabric, so that way the manifold, which is back here, can be mounted to it. The relays are right here for easy access. They're unplugged right now because ever since that leak started happening, I just unplugged the relays, and the air system is so leak free that it sat for like 4 months without losing any air. So the only leaks were coming from these check valves, and so that's what we're taking care of today. So we're just gonna be taking this crap apart so I can easily work in here and then go from there. The first step is all the bags are drained right now, and then the tank has to be drained of air. So that's the first thing you want to do, because you don't want to take off lines and have, you know, 150 psi just like blow up in your face. So yeah, we're gonna get started. All right, top tip number 2, we got quick disconnects on the end of the lead wires for the compressor. This is much better than hardwiring them in. Something we didn't do that we're looking to change is you want your positive and negative wires to be opposite. Like if this is a male end, make this a female end. That way it's impossible to connect them improperly when you go to reinstall it. So we'll be looking at changing that. These are just, see if I can get you a good view of these.
You know, I got that tip.
Quick disconnects, you can get it like, you know, hardware stores or whatever.
You know, I got that tip from Calvin with TJ Hunt.
Yep.
It was a pretty good idea.
It was a good idea.
Super smart idea.
And this is that donut shaped thing. See if I can get a good. This is that donut shaped thing. It took a long time to get it to be like a nice shape, but it works out pretty well. And then on the underside, there are these rubber feet, just so we had wires routing underneath there, and I didn't want the wires to get like pinched underneath there. So we got these little rubber feet. Yeah.
Same with under the frame, has rubber feet as well.
When I installed these, I had them mounted in the car like this, which I knew was subpar, but it was just, I was like, screw it, I don't want to try and figure out another way. And these isolators appear to still be okay, but it's not their preferred way of mounting it. There's only 2 ways to use this isolator mount. You mount it like this, or you mount it like this. Those are the only 2 ways that these are to be used.
That would be the best way.
All right, so it's been a minute, but I kind of just been tinkering around. I'm trying to figure out how to run these compressors. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to run the isolators in this configuration, so I might just go without them for now until I figure out something in the long term. But I've been doing some digging, and I tore apart one of these compressors. For those of you who don't know how one works, this little thing's a piston, and this is kind of like a little crank balancer shaft assembly. This little jobby goes up and down inside, well, this head sits right there, and this just rotates inside of here. This is not a pressurized area. Then it sits inside this, and that's what it goes up inside and down in. You can kind of see it. And there's all sorts of dust in there from the piston ring wearing, which is like a nylon piece. You can see this. This is kind of like a plastic piece. This is kind of like a plastic piece. Anyways, this is what's above it, and you can see some like gross stuff on there, and it kind of gunks up, creates this nastiness. Since it's inside this chamber, which then goes out this port, and right after that's my check valve. And so I think that black stuff that's in here is getting wet and mixing with water and just sort of gumming up, and then it's getting inside my check valve, and then it's keeping it like that. So these compressors are probably just worn. I mean, they're worse for wear, they're old. I'm pretty sure previous owner bought them used, and then when I inherited the problem that was their air ride setup, I just decided to reuse these until they were gone, and now they're gone. So these are rebuildable, but I wanted a more powerful compressor. These are 380s. I upgraded to 400s, so that's what's been going on. And I'll update you guys after I figure out how I'm gonna mount these 400s. All right, man, bring them in. So it's a day later. Like I said, I didn't want to film like everything because all I was doing was just swapping over to different compressors. I didn't really change the layout too much. I still had to run the compressors sideways, but I flipped the mounting feet on the compressors over to the side. So I took the mounting tabs on the compressors and I moved them over to one side, and I thought this would still be like twisting on the isolation mounts, but now the isolation mounts are upright, and it turns out that most of the weight is in the body. I mean, that makes sense now that I think about it, but most of the weight's in the body of the compressor. There's really not a lot of weight up here, so it's actually sitting nice and flat on the isolation mount. And we bolted them up here using these two holes just into the wood with some bolts. And I had to relocate my water traps just a little bit to make room for the bigger compressors and for where we kind of moved them, but I think it looks a lot nicer. I have plans for this stuff in the future to make this look nicer, but for right now, it's just a leak-free, good, solid setup. It's not appealing to the eye, but this isn't really a show car anyways, so I like the way this came out, and it doesn't leak, so that's kind of all I care about, you know? Oh, you know what? We forgot to share some tips and tricks.
Okay.
All right, so let's do another quick tips and tricks portion. Let's walk over to the toolbox with me.
We're walking. We're on the move.
This stuff right here, okay?
And then Loctite 565 or 595?
Loctite 565. Ever since we started using this, we started having a lot less leaks than we did when we used thread tape, or at least when I used thread tape. The second thing is
that tube has probably had, I don't know, 5 air setups,
full cars on this thing,
and then a bunch of redoing. So that you know, if you have one tube, it will literally probably last you as long as you would ever need it to.
Another tip is a good line cutter. I mean, this is the one that comes with most air kits, and it honestly does the job. If you're gonna be pulling lines in and out, if you have the slack in the line, cut off like a new fresh tip, because these push-to-connects bite into the line, and if you're using an old bite, it might not create a good seal on there. So I usually, if I have the extra slap, I'll just...
Slack.
Slack. If I have the extra slack, I'll cut off like a new fresh tip, and that way I'll know I got a good connection.
Make extra slack when you do your lines. Leave plenty of room so that from the future, you can fix things like that and you have the room for it.
There's a lot of people out there that are like believers in compression fittings, and honestly, I think either solution is good as long as you do it right. I use push connects because it's way easier to maintain them, and you don't have to keep buying crush washers or anything. We already talked about the quick disconnects for the compressors. That just makes your life easier. If you don't have to hardwire anything, use quick disconnects. Water traps. If you noticed, I have 3 water traps. Now that is like the most ideal that you should have.
What you really need to do is you need to have a water trap between every compressor in the tank, a water trap between the manifold and the tank as well, so that everything going to the manifold is the least moist air as possible.
Yeah.
Basically.
You want the driest air.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I have, as you can see right here, this is a water trap between each compressor and the tank. And then this third water trap right here is between the
manifold and the tank.
And the manifold. And so you're drying the air as you're filling up your tank, so the air in your reservoir should be as dry as possible. And then as sort of like a last ditch effort to filter out any particulates, because you got to remember these also kind of work as an air filter. And so to catch any solid particulates and stuff and prevent that from going in your manifold, you have another water trap between the tank and the manifold. If you're only going to run one water trap, I would put it between the tank and the manifold, because it's more important to protect your manifold than to have water sitting in the tank. If you can only have one, put a tank drain. Well, we have a tank drain as well, but put a tank drain on and then have one water trap between the tank and the manifold minimum. And then smart layouts, like I have the water traps in an area that's easily accessible, and we also put our relays in an area that's easily accessible, because relays are a common replaceable item.
Where are the relays?
Right here. These are the two relays right here. They go bad. Not often, like they shouldn't really, but it's one of those parts that they're a common fail item, so I put it in an area that's easily maintained. That's kind of it. I'd say the most important things are the sealant, the water traps, the upgraded check valves, which we talked about earlier, quick disconnects for your wiring.
Straight cut lines.
Straight cut lines. Yeah, when we talked about the good cutter, there's just good cutting practice.
Sometimes you're not going to be able to avoid metal on metal contact. So say a leader line and the body of the car or a strut or something like that. And in certain instances when you do that, you want to use, there you go, you want to use chafe tape, gaff tape. So if you notice, this did do its job, and it helped that, because that would have worn through. This was coming in contact, couldn't really avoid it on this area when we had the other setup in there. It was probably just like that, and it was rubbing on here. So we put that on there to prevent it wearing through the line and you getting an issue. So that definitely helps a lot. And that you can use that in any instance besides air, anywhere you don't want chafing to happen.
So that's our air rod tips, and that's sort of just a video of me swapping out the compressors again. I really like the way those look, and thanks again to Cedar Performance for helping me out to get squared away with these compressors. I will leave a link to their website below. And remember, Brian's a sales rep for Cedar Performance, so if you are looking for parts for your car, he's a good person to hit up. You'd be dealing with someone that's pretty experienced in the Volkswagen community or the BMW community. But yeah, so if you like this video, obviously be sure to like and subscribe and stuff. We've seen a huge increase in subscribers and a huge increase in likes, and so thank you guys, especially all the new guys that are here. Huge thank you, Brian. Yep.
Oh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I hate finger guns.
I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna end it.